Hello, good morning. So, tomorrow I'm going off to visit my mother. I do that every couple of months. I go down to stay with her for a week because she lives 5 hours away with train, so it's a bit difficult to visit more often than short amounts of time. Anyways, I'm going on my little vacation, so I want to get some hauls done before I go so that I can clean this stuff up and have a more tidy house to come home to. So, yes. I wanted to start with a book haul, generally fantasy, science fiction, and horror. And I'll try to get a movies and games haul and a Venefica occult findings haul done later today. So let's start. First, some mangas. We've already reviewed this. I've got volume 1 of Midnight Secretary, and I have got volume 1 and 2 of, let me see if I can pronounce this, Quella Magi Orico Magica. And forgive me, I've got volume 1 of Quella Magi Orica Magica, and I've got volume 1 and 2 of this, Quella Magi Kasumi Magica. So, 3 volumes for the Quella Magi series. And basically, each one of these two series follows a different magic girl. And I really fell in love with Madoka Magica. And this is in the same universe, so it doesn't have anything, or at least hardly anything, to do with the story of Madoka. So, is this as good as Madoka Magica? Well, it does. You don't have the surprise factor, because one of the things that is with the Cruella Magi Madoka Magica anime is that it starts out very cute and sweet, and you're expecting that you will be watching something similar to Capture Sakura or Sailor Moon. Here's a regular magic girl anime with a little fluffy companion, and then it turns out to be something extremely somber and nearing horror. And by nearing horror, I'm saying that little fluffy companion, yeah, I probably have tea with Cthulhu. You see it on one of these covers? No, he isn't. Yes, he is. There we have him, Cubby. And yeah, basically, you forget Jason and Pinhead and all of those. That little bunny space cat thingy there, no, he's scary. I'm not gonna spoil you too much here, but yeah. And so I got these three. I'm going to continue buying the series. I really am glad they are continuing developing that setting because it's awesome. And then for some novellas, I've got this one, which is the follow-up, the sequel to Cinder, and it's book 2 of the Lunar Chronicles. And it's by Melissa Mayer. I should probably say who made these different manga books. Hold on. The Puella Maggiorica Magica is story by Magica Quartet, so it's probably some group of people, and art by Mura Kuroi, and it's published by Yum Press. All of them are published by Yum Press. And Puella Magi Kasumi Magica is story by Magica Quartet and story by Masaki Hibaratsu and art by Tasaki Tensugi. And Midnight Secretary is story and art by Tomi Omi, and it's by Viz. Yeah, so you just have that information. So let's move on. Scarlet is by Melissa Mayer, and it's published by Puffin Books. And I really like this series. One thing that annoys me though is that I bought the book new and it came in this dented condition. I mean, that annoys me when a seller ships out a book in a dented condition and doesn't inform about it. But again, I live in Norway. Sending it back to the United States, it will cost more than just buying a new book. And really, I'm buying these to read. They don't have to be in pristine condition. And then I have the In the Moors, the book one in A Shaman Mystery by Nina Milton. I haven't read this yet. It's published by Ink, and the way I understood from the back of it, it's a sort of semi-realistic urban fantasy. Basically, it's a shaman who solves mysteries, and the magic is more down to earth, more like what we people who practice these things actually believe that are possible. At least what most of us believe is possible. Some of us do believe that there are no limits, but yeah, you get the point. I don't know though, because like I said, I haven't read it. I just sort of bought it on a whim because I thought, oh, that sounds cool. And then I have book 3 of the the 3 omnibuses. I was supposed to get book 2 because I want to get the entire series, but when I opened the package, I realized I had gotten book. I had gotten book 3 instead, but it doesn't really matter because I'm not through book 1 yet, and I'm planning on getting the entire series, so I just ordered book 2 this month. And this contains The Calling, Changeling, and Strife. I mean, I've heard the Wiccan community buzz about this series for a long time. It's urban fantasy that is heavily based on neo-paganism. But there are a million of these books that are pretty small, so it's been pretty expensive for me to get, because like I said, this is free novel, and shipping usually costs more for me than the book itself. So I'm very happy that I've started to publish these in omnibuses, because then it's a bit more manageable to get them. Anyway, the Sweep series is by Kate Tiernan, and it's published by Speak. And the last novella, it was also a sort of impulse buy. It's Dog Days, and it's the first book in a series. I haven't read it yet though. It's not that long since I got it. I think actually the series is named Dog Days. I know it's a series, but I'm not exactly sure what the series is named. I just picked up this book because it sounded a lot of fun. It's basically excuse me. It's basically your typical mage private detective that's become so popular with the Durston Files, but it's a bit of a twist here that he solves crimes with his dog Familiar. So yeah, this book is by Lom. Try Again by Jon Levitt, and it's published by Ace Fantasy. I've discovered lately that I've been buying more urban fantasy than the typical Tolkienish fantasy, though my favorite series are still the Tolkienish fantasies like Wheel of Times, World of Truth, the Rift War Saga. I really love those kinds of series, but I have discovered that for some reason I've been focusing more on urban fantasy lately rather than the more medieval Renaissance style. Anyway, on to some other things. I have the Strix Chronicles anthology, created by Roseberry and Tess Hanley. And it's basically a book of short stories set in the new world of darkness. And it's by White Wolf and published by Drive-Thru RPG. Now, I know that a lot of role players are either Old World of Darkness, no-called Classic World of Darkness, or New World of Darkness. I like both of them. Now, I do prefer Old World of Darkness, but I still think that the New World of Darkness have a lot of going for them. And while I do prefer the old, I think there's a lot of good things in the new. So yeah, I try to get all of the books for them too. Short stories like this really help set the mood for a role-playing game. It really helps, and it's also a good thing to give new players because it really gets you immersed in the setting. And then I have a Western comic. I have book 3 of the Dragon Age series. So I really love Dragon Age. I just fell in love with the first game, and I can't wait until the third game comes out. So for comics, I know there's this one, and there's also another series I only think there's one book out of. So I've ordered that one, but I haven't gotten it yet. And this one is called Until We Sleep, and it's by David Gaider, Alexander Freed, and Chad Harden, and it's by Dark Horse. That is sort of rounds out the trilogy. And then for some role-playing games, the first I want to show you is this one. Reality A Core Rulebook, created by Herbie Hicks, Margaret Miner, and Kristen Renee Nichols, and it's self-published. And really it's about, I get a bit of the cyber generation vibe from it. It's basically a world where something have happened. So people have gotten a lot of different powers. There are people who can do magic, there are people that have animal senses and all sorts of things. And it's basically about how society deals with this. Now, is it a very good game? Well, I haven't tried it out yet, but from the book, no, it's not brilliant. However, first of all, I really love those kinds of settings. And they have a few nice powers here um, that can be very interesting to use also, for example, for a cyber generation game. But I sort of bought it because of the charm. I mean, let me find some of the pictures here. It's I have all these. Has a very homebrew feel to it. Come on, let me see a picture. The book is being stubborn. Sorry for taking your time with this. Just wanted to. Yeah, for example, here we have a drawing. And you see the drawing is okay, but it's clearly not done by an artist. It's a professional artist. It's done by somebody who probably the book creator have gotten to draw it for them. And I really like things like this. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the typical indie role-playing game where you play old people in a nursing home or play toilet paper roll. I mean, there's some of those that they just go so out of their way to be artistic, and I'm not saying that's anything wrong if you enjoy those games. I, however, aren't the biggest fan. So when I find indie games that are more traditional in their build-up, I just have to have them, especially when they have a setting that really interests me. So even if it isn't the best, I feel good about supporting indie creators like that. The next I've gotten is Fableland role-playing game core rulebook. It's by Shane Gavery and Jamie Wallace. It's by Cubicle 7. And this is basically your typical fantasy-ish role-playing game. It's basically think Dungeons and Dragons clone. I mean, I don't know why I'm buying so many of these, but every one of them brings something new to the table and do the tried and true party of adventurers going around fighting for truth and justice in fantasy-ish world a little differently. So yeah, and besides it wasn't a very expensive book. And I've gotten someone that I'm very excited about. It's Yggdrasil. It's also by Cubicle 7. And it doesn't say a particular author. I think several people were involved with this. And it's basically a Viking role-playing game, but it's more like Ars Magica in that it's a Viking role-playing game, but the way the Vikings believe the world to be. So that there's magic and there's monsters and there's all of that. And being a Norwegian, I can't wait to try this out. And now for two old World Darkness games. Like I said, I really love Old World Darkness, so I get really excited every time they publish a new book for it. I mean, there were like 10 years where they just closed down the setting completely, and we thought that, oh well, it had a good run, we had collected quite a few books, so it's so great that White Wolf is publishing Old World Darkness books again. And the first I want to show you, it has a special place in my heart, and that is the Hunters Hunted 2 for Vampire the Masquerade. And it's of course by White Wolf Game Studios. And it's published by Drive Through RPG. And the reason why this has a very special place in my heart is that the first World of Darkness book I ever read were the original Hunters Hunted. So yeah, I mean, I was 16 years old, I was a die-hard fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I couldn't wait to have a game where you could play a vampire hunter, so when I got money for my 16th birthday, because I had wished for that so I could buy a role-playing game, and I settled on Vampire the Masquerade, and one of the books I picked up for it was Hunters Hunted, and because I was so much interested in vampire hunters at the time, I read the Hunters Hunted book before the core book. So yeah, it's the first World of Darkness book I read, so Hunters Hunted 2 have a special place for me. And then something even more special, another Mage the Ascension book. Mage, that's my game. It's the game I love above all other role-playing games. And it's so, I mean, it's been so important to me my entire life. On our first date, my fiance and me, we played Mage the Ascension. We had a date that was split in half. First part of it, he read the first chapters of Wheel of Time for me, and the last half of it I GM'd Mage the Ascension for him, so it's a very special game for me that way. I've also used a lot of concepts from Mage in my own Chaos Magical practice, so it's a really, really special game for me, and also it's extremely fun to play. So yeah, and it's convention book Syndicate, which basically covers one of the technocratic conventions. So yeah, that's amazing. And it's again from White Wolf Game Studios and Drive Through RPG. And yeah, that was my haul this time. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I'll try to post a few more haul videos today before I go to my mother's place. Have a great day. Blessed be.